rest of his face. Most coons have black cheeks and a dark stripe that runs all the way up and down their foreheads. As soon as anybody saw him, we'd tell Big Jim, and he, being a good shot, would shoot him right out of the tree for us. Mr. Coon would come crashing down through the bare branches to the ground. If he was still alive and a fierce fighter, old Blue Jay and Blackie would still be able to lick him. If Big Jim's bullet killed him, we'd make the dogs leave him alone so that the fur wouldn't be damaged, and the night's hunt would be over. Right beside me, Big Jim was loading his new rifle. For a second I watched him, noticing that it was a very nice rifle with a walnut stock and a long dark blue barrel with an open rear sight and a blade front sight. I'd seen him load a gun many a time when some of us had gone rabbit or squirrel hunting with him, and he always kept it pointed away from everybody and at the ground while he was doing it. The dogs were making so much noise and acting so excited that we couldn't hear much of anything. When Circus tried to stop them, they would quit for a few seconds, but before we could listen long enough to hear any suspicious sounds, if there had been any to hear, one or the other of the hounds would start chopping at the tree again. "Here," Circus said to Big Jim. "Let me have the gun. I'll stop 'em from barking." He walked over to Big Jim, reached out his hand for the rifle, and I thought, what on earth? Circus acted as if he was mad, too. Big Jim had just finished loading the .22. I was surprised to see him hand it over to Circus, just as little Jim called out in an anxious voice, "What are you going to do? Shoot the dogs?" "Wait and see, and listen," Circus said. The next thing I knew, he had the gun to his shoulder. He was pointing it up toward the branches of the tree and sighting as though he was going to shoot something. I thought different things, such as maybe he'd already seen the coon and was going to shoot it. "Now listen, everybody," Circus ordered, and we did. Both dogs stopped chopping, and both of them had their eyes on Circus and the gun, waiting for him to shoot. He didn't, but just kept on pointing while all of us listened, which is the way to get a coon dog to stop barking. I don't know what I expected to hear, if anything. Maybe the rubbing together of the branches of the elm trees overhead, the groaning sounds that we'd heard one day during the summer, or else maybe the scratching of a coon's claws on the bark of the tree if there was a coon and if it might still be climbing higher. Of course, Dragonfly was probably listening for a ghost, although when he'd found out that the sound his mother had heard was either Blue Jay or Blackie bawling along Sugar Creek, he hadn't been so sure that there was a ghost. If anybody had been actually in the old stone house looking out through one of the dirty windows, he could have seen a very interesting gang of different sized, different-looking boys. If he'd looked at little Jim, he'd have seen one of the cutest kids that ever wore a brand-new brown plaid zipper jacket. Little Jim had both his hands shoved into the jacket's side pockets, and I could tell by the two bulges they made that his fists were doubled up, which meant he was maybe kind of nervous and also a little bit afraid, although if his fists were doubled up, he might feel braver than if they weren't. Dragonfly just that second was holding a red handkerchief up to his nose, maybe trying to stop a sneeze. It was the kind of handkerchief that's very large, almost 2 feet square, like the bandanas farmers and hunters sometimes use. Even some of the women and girls around Sugar Creek used them, only not to stop sneezes, but to wear on their heads the way they do scarves. Poetry had on a heavy, red, sheep-lined corduroy coat that had its zipper unfastened and was hanging open because he was pretty hot after our chase. His red corduroy cap had its ear flaps turned up, and one of his ears was flopped over. I was thinking those things about how different ones of us looked, or would look to anybody inside that old house, or even to a ghost if there was one. Also, there was a quick flash of thought in my mind that wondered why everybody always thought a ghost had to wear something white and long like a bedsheet instead of ordinary clothes. All of a sudden, while everything was as quiet as death, I heard a banging noise, a little like a gun going off, and also like a door slamming somewhere. I knew it wasn't Circus's gun. The sound came from the house itself. We all jumped as if we'd been shot at, and I quickly flashed the light of my flashlight in the direction of the old house. We'd all heard it, and I guess we all saw what we saw at the same time. Anyway, Dragonfly and I did, because we both said in scared, whispering voices, "Shh, there's a light in the old house." Imagine that. First a banging noise like a door slamming, and then suddenly it happens on a very dark night when you're thinking about a ghost anyway and are out in a lonely forest just outside a house that some people believe is haunted. There in front of your eyes, as you look through a dirty window pane not more than 30 feet from you, you see a light of some kind. What to do, or what not to do, was the question. Dragonfly.